Financial planning and security can sometimes be seen as a moving target. The rules change constantly, and you need guidance to stay ahead of the market moves. This is the Lebenthal Report with industry veterans Michael Hartzman and Dominick Tavella. We'll break down the news, trends, and overall direction of the markets, telling you what may be coming next, investment opportunities, and what to avoid. Now, here are your hosts, Dominick Tavella and Michael Hartzman.
All right. Today is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026. And we're back. I'm Michael Hartzman along with my partner, Dominick Tavella. How are you, Dom?
Mike, doing well. No complaints. We had a nice long holiday weekend last weekend, and we're back in the offices today. So
Yep.
no complaints.
Happy Father's Day.
Thank you as well, and all our viewers and listeners as well.
Thank you. In spite of your fleece, happy summer.
Yeah, I guess it's the Florida blood in me. Back in New York, it seems a little chilly, but I'm sure that'll change pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, yeah, be careful what you wish for. Exactly. We'll be complaining before you know it. But speaking of complaining or not complaining, let's just kind of jump into it. Other than, I guess, the last day, the market's been on quite a tear still. We took the last 2 weeks off, and the market's still doing market things. The S&P 500 year to date is up a little bit more than 10% through Friday, June 19th. It's probably a little lower now. The Dow is up about 8 and change, 8.16 through Friday. And the NASDAQ always seems to be the winner, was up 14.43 over 1 year through June 19th. The NASDAQ has been up over 36%. The S&P up almost 27, and the Dow up 24. So, again, if you ignore the headlines and you were on another planet for the last year, you would think we were living in nirvana for the past 12 months.
Yeah, and when you think a lot of people, they don't open the statements. They're afraid to open the statements. We've joked about that in the past. They don't want to look at their accounts. Some of them are quite pleasantly surprised, right, Mike? They look at the numbers like, how, where, when did that happen? Because you look at the headlines and it's scary stuff. But in all fairness, the last couple of weeks we did get positive news out of the Middle East. The ceasefire, you can argue, is holding. More important, they are at the negotiating table. And it seems like some kind of accord is in the pipeline. And we've had a couple of weeks now of pretty positive returns in the market based on the fact that something positive theoretically is going to happen. But more important, oil and price of energy has dropped considerably. And with that drop in energy prices, the fear of inflation, higher interest rates, all that fear comes off the table. So the market has been reacting over the last couple of weeks, at least positively. And I dare say because of the positive news coming out of the Middle East.
Yeah, that and along with the fact that the fundamentals really in the economy are not terrible. We always have a couple of scary headlines as it relates to interest rates. The new Fed chair, Kevin Warsh, had his first meeting last week, and overall, I think he acted prudently. Where they're just going to wait and see right now what they do with interest rates. So I agree. Heading into the summer, if we could just get some stability, hopefully it could be a calm summer from a market point of view without too many headlines while people are away on vacation. Because the risk always is you have a negative headline and traders are out and about and not manning their desk. Bad news could really perpetuate more bad news if there's not any buyers to support jumping in there.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the interest rate issue because we've spent a lot of time talking about it, Mike, that we came into this year with most of the market experts talking about 2 rate cuts at some point this year, and one maybe by now. And all of a sudden that pendulum, boy, has swung completely the other way, right, Mike? Where they're literally talking about rate increases because of how bad inflation has picked up. Now, we think that does kind of calm down later part of this year. Lower energy prices should help the inflation question. But our new chairperson of the Fed is looking at a possible increase in interest rates when we know we have a president that wants lower rates.
Right, and and the president will have no one to blame this time because he seemed to forget that he put Powell in there as well. But I think his memory is good enough at this point to remember that he put Wash in a couple of weeks ago. So
Yeah, and it they say his first Fed meeting, and his first news conference, he did an excellent job of kind of walking that tightrope. But I do think he'll have a better chance of achieving his goals later on in the year. I think. Again, we get a decrease in energy prices and transportation costs. The other factors that make inflation worse, I think will soften up as well. Maybe that takes some of the stress out of the headlines. But as you said, Mike, we could have another one tomorrow. For God knows, it's just the world that we live in. The headlines do drive the short term. But to your point, the economics have been decent enough, solid enough that the longer term prospects look positive.
yeah, and look, I'll go on the record right now and just say to you, I don't think we're going to have an interest rate hike. And the reason I don't think so is the higher price of gas and oil, yes, is inflationary, but in essence, it acts like an interest rate hike because people just have less money in their pockets. So if oil prices come down, that's like getting an interest rates lowered because now people have more money in their pocket. So I think the Fed was prudent in doing nothing. And I really think, if, as you said, the ceasefire holds, oil levels off, gas levels off, I kind of feel the economy will heal itself without Fed intervention between now and the end of the year. What do you say?
I'm gonna take that side of the bet, Mike. I'm not gonna bet against what you just said because I think you're exactly right. Look, it's been a difficult second quarter because of what happened in Iran. One stat that I saw the other day was kind of a little bit surprising, sad. The average American did get a pretty decent tax cut as a result of the big beautiful bill. Whether you like it, you don't like it, the facts are that roughly, I believe it was the month of April, the average total of tax cuts that Americans received exceeded, $18 million, but 9 million of that went to fuel costs. And then the next month's tax refunds were about 22 million, and about 11 million of that went to extra fuel costs, price of gasoline and everything else, right? So it's kind of sad that that's where the money went and not into the economy, not reinvigorate. Say that word for me, Mike.
Reinvigorate.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. I knew I had you there for a reason to bail me out. So I wish that money went into the economy. I wish it went into people's pocket. I wish it went into savings. Unfortunately, it went to higher gas prices. But hopefully that roller coasts downward now through the rest of the year, and we can definitely pick up some economic growth as a result. So I think you're spot on that.
Thank you. And look, the consumer is a resilient bunch. The consumer will continue to spend, will continue to go on vacation, will continue to build up some credit card debt as long as I have job security. And I think the underpinning of all of this is we've had, for the most part, a fairly stable job market, labor market.
And Mike, I'll give you another kudos because you bring this up all the time. People look at their investment portfolios, their 401ks, their 403bs, and, conservatively, they're up 6, 8, 10%, right? Depending on the modeling of their portfolio, their risk level. So, being for the first 6 months of the year and being up, I'm going to call it round numbers, 6 to 8%, that puts a smile on your face. right? That makes you feel a little bit better about having a few extra dollars and being able to go out there and spend a few extra dollars. So, again, the headlines put a lot of fear in people. Has been consistently true. If they reacted to those fears, they'd be holding the bag down 10% instead of being up 10%. So we'll be cautiously optimistic through the rest of the year.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of wealth and newfound wealth, that's a great segue. Tonight's guest is Leda Zukowski. She's with New York Life. She's an advisor at the Advancement Institute, and she's going to talk about the NIL, which we briefly touched on about 3 months ago with Peter Schwartz, the sportscaster, when she was at WFAN. And NIL stands for name, image, and likeness. And really, Dom, it's created a whole new world for the young college student athlete. And it's not just for the star quarterback at USC or the point guard at the University of Michigan. This NIL impacts everyone, and for all the student athletes, some of our clients as well, and their children and grandchildren. So Leda is going to talk. Peter talked about the sports side of NIL, and Leda tonight is going to talk more so the business side of NIL, and what is this name, image, and likeness, and what's the impact of that going forward.
And boy, does this tie into the whole financial world, not only today, but what does it look like going forward? And obviously the financial health of these colleges and universities that are coming up with hundreds of millions of dollars to make these payments. So this is a very topical issue, and again, an unknown in terms of what it's going to do for the future. So great topic tonight, Mike.
So we'll be right back with Leda Zukowski, New York Life.
You are listening to the Lebenthal Report. If you have any questions or comments, please send an email to contact@lebenthal.com. Now, back to the Lebenthal Report.
All right, I'm Michael Hartzman, back with my partner Dominick Tavella on the Lebenthal Report, along with Leda Zukowski at New York Life Advisor Advancement Institute. Leda, welcome aboard. How are you?
Thank you very much. It's so great to be here. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Thank you. So tonight we're going to talk about the brave new world of college sports, name, image, and likeness. And Leda, before we get into that, I can't help myself but annoy Dominick as much as I can about him being a New York Jet fan. And last year, I may have the school incorrect, but I think it was the quarterback at the University of Oregon was told that he's going to be the second pick in the draft, and he's going to be drafted by the New York Jets. And rather than go to the NFL, he said, you know what? I got a pretty good gig here, and they're going to pay me about $4 million to play on my senior year. I think I'm going to go back to college. So sorry, Dom, I just had to do that. But
yeah, Mike, obviously a true story. Now, he may or may not have done it, and the rumor is he did not want to go play for the Jets, which I don't blame him, even as a fan. Having said that, the money was so good staying where he was. And I think when you talk about other endorsements and shoe contracts, that number was substantially larger than when you rattled off. So, Leda, what is going on here? This is nuts.
Yes, and these young athletes are suddenly finding themselves with millions of dollars, and it's a really interesting thing that's changing the landscape of universities and colleges and college sports, and then helping people make decisions to stay in college for longer, which is also changing pro. So it's something new, and it's something that at New York Life Investment Management, we recognize that it's an incredible opportunity for financial advisors to support the young athletes who literally don't know what they don't know. There's a lot that goes behind being a 1099 employee, which is basically what they are. They're getting these millions of dollars thrown at them, and it's like winning the lottery. And their young minds go directly to, I'm going to buy my mom her dream house with part of this check, and then my favorite sports car that I've always wanted, and then I'm going to take all my best friends to Bali for the weekend. And then the next thing you know, the money's gone. And nobody told them, by the way, that taxes weren't taken out of that amount of money. And then on April 15th, when the government comes calling, they're like, what do you mean? I spent it all already. And then they go into debt and having to pay back the government. So what's great not about that, and it's a story that we've heard a lot, even with pro athletes who go pro, make millions of dollars, and then wind up having to sell refrigerators to make a living. The time span and the earning potential for the athletes is much shorter than ours. When we get to retire, we will have been working for 45, 46 years plus. Young athletes, maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years. It depends on when their arm wears out, or when they get a knee injury, or when a better player comes along and takes their place. So for a financial advisor to advise them and guide them through their shorter career time span is really important to them. And also to create those buckets of, here's a bucket for fun money. Yeah, you're young, you're at the top of your game, have some fun. But we also have to have this bucket called taxes. And depending on what state you live in, it's a different, in my state, in New York, that's half of my bonus goes away to the government. And then a bucket called your future. Because the other thing they're thinking, they're 18 years old, they're 20 years old, they're not thinking 5 years into the future, they're thinking about tomorrow and the game tomorrow. And they're not thinking that, oh, if you put this money to work for you today, it can be here for you in 10 years. It can be here for you in 20 years. And not only just be here, but we can help it grow. So at New York Life Investment Management, we're like, this is a great opportunity for financial advisors to get involved and help the students and guide them and protect them from the things that they don't know about that are going to happen to them. And, that expands to their families. So the networking opportunity there isn't just with the athlete, but when the financial advisor starts working with them, their families probably need Finance 101 themselves. And then getting in contact with the coach and being the coach, having a coach as a center of influence for all of their other athletes, because the athletes are going, hey, coach, I just made this money from NIL. What do I do with it? Coach doesn't want to tell them what to do. Coach wants to win the game. They're busy. They want to have your business card to be able to hand over and say, look, Mike's your guy. And so the network opportunity there for financial advisors is pretty immense once you get in.
So Leda, let's just start with 10,000 feet in the air. What does it mean, name, image, and likeness? I know that they call it the NIL. That's what it stands for. But what does it actually mean, and how did it come about?
So name, image, and likeness is basically being able to be paid for using your name, image, and likeness to sponsor something. And standing in front of Dunkin' Donuts with your favorite coffee drink is your name, image, and likeness. And what's happening is that advertisers and sponsors and athletic shoe manufacturers are seeing that happen naturally thanks to social media. Somebody will say, and they have a lot of followers because they're an influencer and they're in the headlines all the time, and they're like, look, this is my favorite shoe. And the next thing you know, 50,000 people have ordered that shoe. And it's because they're standing there with their name, image, and likeness. And so advertisers and marketing companies and athletic companies are seeing that happen. And they're like, oh, well, we could pay them for doing that. And it's also changing, kind of the face of advertising in itself, not just print and television. It's humans who are receiving compensation simply because they exist and because
But all this is kind of new, right, Leda? That's the point, that you'd have a young person going to the University of Connecticut or Michigan State or University of Florida, and the universities, colleges clearly were making money by the kids playing sports, and the kids, I'm going to call them kids, young athletes, were getting a scholarship, right? And then it all of a sudden changed. How did it change?
It was, the NCAA, and you can go into the whole history of NIL and how that trend was emerging, and how it's like, well, they should receive compensation for that, and they probably need the help. They need the money. A lot of people who don't come from financial privilege, and colleges are benefiting from their being part of the team. So it just makes sense that they should get paid for that. And now it's become a national landscape. And my colleague Caesar likes to talk about it as flying the plane while you're still building it. So what's happening is they've come up with national laws, but everything is still in flux and things are changing every day. And states can make their own laws. They have to adopt the national laws, but a state can say, well, in my state, if you come to a school in my state, I'm not going to charge you taxes. Or a school, and there can be school specific laws as well. One school says, yeah, you can hold up your shoe, but you can't wear your jersey. So it's a very volatile, everything's changing environment all the time. And so you really have to, if this is something that you want to focus on, you have to be up to date on all of the laws in the states that you want to work in. And you need to check that once a month. You can't just say, okay, I checked it at the beginning of the year and it's the same. Nope, it can change because that tax law, Arkansas, since 1995, since 2025, the NIL earnings are tax-free. Most recently, Mississippi has jumped on the same bandwagon, and now other states are seeing that and saying, well, wait a minute, they're going to attract more students or more athletes to their school, and then what about us? I guess we should think about doing that too, especially where tax rates are much higher. So it's really changing the face of everything in terms of how colleges can recruit, and what states are going to get preferences, and because of the amount of money influx, what schools are going to get preferences because they have more money to spend on NIL.
So that was my question. You're talking about standing in front of Dunkin' Donuts or promoting the shoe that they use, but aren't they also actually getting paid directly from the school that they're playing for?
Yes, and it was just a year ago, July 1st, where it was passed that schools can distribute up to $20.5 million annually on NIL. So schools themselves can pay the students, and that's in addition to scholarships and any of the other benefits that students are already getting.
And that's not per sport, that's for the entire athletic program, correct?
That is. And what's interesting too, and of course, I just read this headline the other day. There is a group of football players who have gotten together with a class action lawsuit saying that's not enough. So they're actually saying it needs to be higher than $20.5 million. And everybody thought that was so generous a year ago. And already there are athletes saying it's not enough. We need more.
And where are, loaded question, where are the university colleges getting this money to be able to pay the athletes?
So it's a combination. You know, there are the collectives that are the donor groups in each of the universities. There's the money that they're earning themselves through the sports programs. So the universities have that money. There are, you know, fundraising that is involved in that, but it's mostly coming from their sports department, and they think about it as an investment in the students, because it's helping the school as well. The school is getting a lot of money, just like another advertiser, because more people have eyes on it. It's funneling more people into the school, selling tickets, things like that. So the universities are thinking of it as an investment, increasing their own profit.
Are they sharing? Are the students sharing in the sale of jerseys that the university may sell on campus? Do you know?
I don't think it's that specific. I think they're just given lump sums of money. It's not, I don't think it's, if we sell 10 shirts, you get 10% or something. I
Gotcha.
don't think so.
Leda, we know that there are certain universities, colleges in the country that are really good at raising money, whether it's the boosters, the associations, the donors, and then not so good. So doesn't it create an unlevel playing field if you got hundreds of millions of dollars more that you can use to attract athletes?
Absolutely. And that's why it's changing the face of college sports. And those colleges that have the more money to spend are going to be attracting the better athletes. And so it does create an uneven playing field. And they're trying to set a lot of new laws. And like my colleague says, it's a plane flying while you're still building it. So while this is happening and people are trying to control it and put regulations on it, our president has created a task force to even look at this, because today athletes can do unlimited transfers. So they can, their first choice school, and they've been working or playing for them, and then a better offer comes from another school, they can transfer. And that's not so great to the original school who spent whatever money and time recruiting them over, and then they can transfer the next year. So this task force, and they're just proposing it to Congress, is you only get one transfer every 5 years, and they want to cap NIL at 5 years as well, to that person, to the point of that person who could stay in college forever, earning $4 million. So they're trying to put these regulations on it because everybody knows that it's going to really create that uneven playing field out there. And if the school doesn't have the money, does that mean they don't get the good athletes? And if the athlete is driven by the money, then yeah, they're going to go to the best paying school.
You kind of already hinted at it. I'm sorry, Mike.
Go ahead.
But there's been a lot of fan complaints and regulator complaints going, this is the wild, wild west. So how will the government step in? You kind of already hinted at it. Where do you think that goes?
Yeah, maybe now that things are settling down in Iran, they'll have more time to focus on it. Like you said, it's the Wild West, and we never know when something like that can be put in place, when it can be enforced. Nick Saban was just there, and he was for it, talking about how the case that it's a really good thing for schools and will help more level the playing field. But I don't know in terms of timing what that looks like. And there's so much involved with that, whether it's the legality of it, and how that gets involved, and how they want to enforce some of those laws, because there have been marketing departments created at universities to help to help the athlete understand what it's like, and to help the school figure out how to handle NIL. There's a great, we met with the dean at University of Southern South Carolina, sorry. And they're creating a whole curriculum for students to help them learn how to manage NIL, to help them learn how to create a brand. Because that's the other interesting thing about NIL, is it's your name, image, and likeness. It's you. So the athlete has to figure out what they want their brand to be, and what are some of the things that they want to promote that reflect who they are as an athlete, or reflect who they are as an individual. So this course takes them through that, how to create a brand, and it gets into some of the financial aspects as well, because we want to make sure that they're protected against all of the things that can go wrong if you don't know that you have to pay a portion of that into the taxes.
Speaking of that, this when a senior or a junior went into the pros and got a bonus check for millions of dollars, it always seemed ludicrous that a 21 and 22-year-old was handed more money than most people might make in a lifetime. But now they're giving it to an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
And they're adults, so there really is no control really on anyone kind of advising these young athletes on what to do with money, and this may be the first time they remotely had anything close to that type of money.
Yeah. And that's why they really need you. That's why they really need financial advisors. They don't know all of the things that go into earning this kind of money. And also, like you said, they've never seen any kind of amount like this before. We'll never see the amounts that these young athletes are seeing at age 18. So it's really a great opportunity for financial advisors to educate them. And we've created some presentations where financial advisors, if they're getting in front of some athletes, can say, here are the things that you need to look out for. One of the first things is taxes. You want to make sure that you are working with a financial professional who can give you that guidance and help you make sure that you set aside that money, put you on a budget, and get you to start thinking about your future. And also involving the parents, because there's a lot of bad actors coming at them as well. Their name's in the headline, they're at the top of their game. Long lost cousin Sal shows up and says, hey, cuz, I got a great stock pick for you, and you're going to double your money in a month. And if they don't know what they don't know, and they're like, oh, this is my cousin, I guess he's right. And then of course they make that deal, and it goes wrong. Apologies for the beeping. Manhattan is Manhattaning outside my window. So it's really, like they've got your business card. It's like, hey, Dominick is my financial advisor. Here's his business card. Go talk to him. Then you get to be the bad cop, and you're really protecting that young athlete who is 18 and doesn't know any better, who, might believe that that's a great stock, but in fact, it's not. And so there's so many traps that they can fall into, and helping them understand the difference between a financial advisor and an agent. A lot of them think that an agent is going to help them with their finances, but that's not what the agent is doing. So it's another interesting avenue for financial advisors to connect with agents who can become their centers of influence, so that when they do have a group of athletes, they can send them to you as the person that can help them. So it's really such a great opportunity for financial advisors to do what they do best. You're protecting people who don't know what they don't know, because they don't live finance like we do. Whether you're a sports person or an artist or an engineer or a doctor, it's not your job to know all of the ins and outs of finances. And that's how you take care of them. And that's how you can also take care of these young athletes, and really also talk to them at their level, where they might see you as a very scary and an intimidating financial advisor with certificates on your wall and all of the knowledge that you have. So it's really important to meet them where they are, and take yourself off of that financial advisor pedestal and tell them why you care. Because why, that's the thing. How do you differentiate yourself as the person to be their financial advisor when there's other financial advisors probably approaching them as well? What's your passion? What's your why, and why do you want to help them?
It's all great. It's all great points. I have a few more. We have a few more questions for you when we come back. Well, let's take a break now, and we'll be back with Leda Zukowski from New York Life. And tonight we're talking about the brave new world of college sports and the NIL. So we'll be right back.
You are listening to the Lebenthal Report. If you have any questions or comments, please send an email to contact@lebenthal.com. Now, back to the Lebenthal Report.
All right, I'm Michael Hartzman, back with my partner Dominick Tavella on the Lebenthal Report, along with Leda Zukowski from New York Life. So, Leda, this is an interesting conversation, and you know what's really bizarre about professional athletes, and even most people who work, on the coaching staff or whatever, is if I Google you, I'm not going to learn what your salary is. If you Google me, you're not going to learn how much Dominick make at Lebenthal. But if I Google Aaron Judge, it may be, one of the first things that come up is his salary. Professional athletes live in a bubble. Are these 18 and 19-year-olds protected? Or is it easy for me to find out, what the center of the University of Michigan is making, through his NIL licensing deal?
No, they're not protected. It's out there. And it's scary because, we were just talking about bad actors. Anybody can look that up and find that, and then and like the crazy world of social media, where they're building a brand there and they're really active on social media, and that's where they're doing a lot of this name, image, and likeness work. There are so many trolls and social media like creeps coming at them too. And so that's another area where you need to protect somebody who's only 18 years old. And, social media has an effect on children and young people already. And, they're comparing and yada, yada, and it's very bad for their mental health. And imagine if you've got some creepy person also trolling you on social media because you're so famous and because you have a lot of followers and stuff, and because they know how much money you have. It makes it extra important that there is somebody there to protect them, to educate them, and help them understand this world and this environment that, again, keeps changing. And they're the person where, there's their individual situation or their family situation, and they need to profit from it as much as possible in this limited time frame that they have.
So, Leda, both myself and Mike have worked with professional athletes, and I got to say, especially over the last 10, 20 years, the leagues, NBA and MLB, they've worked hard at trying to educate the players and make sure they are as fiscally responsible as they can. Ultimately, the player has to make up their own mind, right? But all the major leagues now have programs to try to educate the players to be a little bit more responsible and careful, right? Anything like that going on the college side of this?
Yes, absolutely. And as I was mentioning, the dean at USC, he's creating something like that. So because it's become such a moneymaker in that it's, there's so much opportunity there, schools are doing that. So the good schools are recognizing it. The good schools are creating curriculums and saying, hey, if you're going to be earning NIL, you need to take this course on Finance 101. And creating marketing departments around that. So it's the good schools are doing that, and because it is emerging, more and more are catching on if they have the money there. And it's the basics of Finance 101. And also, if a school doesn't have that, and what is part of the opportunity for financial advisors, you can do that. So I've spoken with a lot of financial advisors about this, and once they get a connection in, they can offer, I'll bring a dozen pizzas and do Finance 101 in 20 minutes during your lunch break or during your dinner break or whatever it is. So that's why the opportunity is so great for financial advisors, that if a school doesn't have that as a curriculum or isn't offering that yet, a financial advisor can see that as an opportunity to get connected to that school, to get connected to those athletes, helping them, giving them that education that they need, which is so multifaceted. So if the school can't do it, the financial advisor should jump on that as an opportunity. And the opportunity is immense. It's projected for the 2025-2026 school year that there will be NIL payments of $2.5 billion.
Wow. 2.5 billion with a B.
Yeah,
Correct.
Mike, that's a little higher than your compensation from Lebenthal. I'm just saying out loud.
A little bit.
Just a little bit. $1 billion.
Yes. And that's a lot of cash that's out there that we don't know is not being mismanaged. And those young minds who have not matured fully yet, maybe have never had a paycheck. I remember my first paycheck was way smaller than I thought it was going to be. I'm like, well, wait, that's not what you told me I was going to make. Oh, right. Oh, what's taxes? You have to live and learn. And luckily my paycheck wasn't big enough to make a difference, and I didn't go broke, not paying my tax bill. But when they're getting those big sums of money and taxes haven't been taken out, it's a lot. So just such an immense opportunity for financial advisors to be of service to the athletes, to their families, and to the coaches and the athletic directors and things who don't have time to do that education. It can be you.
And I assume this money, it's a free market. So I assume that most of this money is going to the basketball and the football team.
Those are the highest levels so far, but women's sports are emerging as well. And so that is something that is part of that changing landscape, because it's happening for basketball and football, but now other students are getting involved. They're like, oh, look what they're doing, I can do that too. So you're seeing it's leveling out. I think women's basketball is the third in that ranking: football, basketball, and women's basketball.
So, Leda, I can't help but ask the question. We see so many high tax state residents, New York, California, leaving for no tax states, Texas, Florida. Is there any kind of a wave where these athletes are actually making a conscious decision? Hey, I'm not going to get taxed if I go to Texas versus if I play at a university in California.
So I think, that's what the schools are using as a recruiting device. The schools are saying that. It's like, yeah, you're going to earn this money and you're going to get NIL. And if you come to my school, you won't have to pay taxes on it, because in my state, we have that exception. So it's definitely going to be a recruiting device. And, that'll probably be the first that an athlete hears about it. unless the athlete has become savvy themselves, because just like we're becoming savvy in NIL in the financial services world, so are the athletes. And they're reading the headlines too. And it's one of the things that it's popping up now as something interesting to them. And they're keeping, it's entering into their, when you make a decision, you got one column that's for pluses and one column for minuses. That's on the plus column, or the minus column if it's a school that it doesn't participate that much in NIL or doesn't have enough money to.
So that's an interesting point. There's a cap on how much each school can spend. That's been, I think you said federally mandated. But as Dom and you mentioned earlier, the school still has to come up with the money. So depending on the budget, they could go up to 20 million, but they may only have 5 million to spend. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It's very dependent on the school. At least there is a cap now, unless these football players in their class action lawsuit gets that changed. That could be part of the building the plane while we're flying it. That could be something that they didn't think it was going to be contested, but now there are athletes contesting it. It's not high enough.
And these numbers don't include the shoe contract and the maybe the radio or TV commercial that you might want to shoot, right? That's above and beyond these basic numbers. So you're talking about athletes that basically are business enterprises, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why some of them are doing 1099s, or some of them are becoming LLCs. They're having to become professional entrepreneurs, and they are a business. And it's really fascinating to see some of the athletes turning it into a business. It's the business of them. And there's like, I don't know his name, but he's like created a business on LinkedIn where he helps other athletes. So he's figured it out. He's doing fine. He's doing great. And so he's offering to help other athletes who are going through the same thing, and help them protect themselves and take advantage of the benefits that they can earn, but also teaching them you got to read the contract, you got to read the fine print, or you have to have a lawyer on your team. You have to make sure you know what the tax situation is, and you have to have a CPA on your team, and you have to have your financial advisor on your team to help you plan for your future. And by the way, then you also have to manage your brand. And what if you're top of the game and you've got multiple opportunities coming to you can't take them all. You got to read the fine print on the contracts, because obviously there could be competition and things like that. So it's a lot for an 18-year-old to figure out.
Leda, dumb question. They're still getting scholarships and going, better athletes are still getting scholarships and going to these schools for free, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, not all of them. I mean, some of them are. So it's a great deal, because, well, and some of the research that I've done on it is that even sometimes the scholarships really aren't enough. That they're getting some money, but they're still wind up having to get a second job. And that's why NIL is so great for a lot of people who don't come from money. That it's like, I need this to pay my rent still, or I need this to buy toothpaste and shampoo, because the scholarship isn't enough. And unless they're one of those top players that's getting the full ride and everything's there, NIL makes it possible for the athletes who aren't getting the full ride to also deal with the financial burden that they have. That it's their first time out on their own from their parents, under their parents' roof. They got to figure all that stuff out, and reality hits. And so the ones who aren't getting that full ride, this NIL helps.
And I guess I want to say, to be fair, because we all grew up with these athletes, as you said, sometimes didn't have enough money to go buy a pizza, but the universities were making hundreds of millions of dollars from TV and licensing. The coaches were making tens of millions of dollars, and they would switch colleges, universities to max out their earnings. And there we had these athletes that were kind of stuck in their situation, and then again, wouldn't have enough money to pay for a pizza. So this pendulum really has swung the other way.
Yeah, and it should. They're working hard. It's what they've been working towards their whole life. They should get a piece of that, not just the school.
And I think Dom asked you this earlier. Is there any study? Are these students staying in school longer? Are they completing their education? Are they getting college degrees? Has there been an incentives to stick around longer other than not having to play for the Jets?
So I think it depends. I think, like in that situation, he was incentivized to stay in school. I don't think we have enough research yet to say whether or not people are then deciding to go into the 5-year plan versus the 4-year plan. Because I think a lot of people are anxious to get out of school also. But certainly, if it's financially a good idea, why not? And hopefully
but to
maybe
Mike's
they're getting
point, I mean,
education too.
again, we're only reading about it, right? But to Mike's point, we just went through the NFL draft, and there were definitely individuals that were choosing to stay because the compensation was so good. They may not have earned as much if they actually got drafted. So if you got drafted in the fifth round, you might get 200,000, but if you stayed in college, you get 1 million. So that I think that licensing and the income they could generate from what we've read literally factored into whether they stayed in school or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, with the few minutes we have left, and if any of our clients or listeners out there have children or grandchildren who are good athletes, who are going to get a scholarship, who might get some NIL money, what would be, your first piece of advice that they should give their child or grandchild or even themselves, right? What would be the best thing they could do, first off, if they discover that this is a possibility for someone in their family?
I think it's important to, if you don't already know how getting paid like that works, is to seek out a financial professional. It's really, they don't have the time, they don't want to, and they need a professional to tell them what to expect, what to plan for, and how to benefit from this, smaller earning window, to make sure that what they're earning today can still be there for them for their future, because it is such a great opportunity for them, and because this kind of money is very rarely seen in life. They want to make sure it's still there for them when they're no longer the star football player, when they're no longer, at the top of their game, because we know that that their arm will wear out, or their knee will blow out, or somebody else better is going to come along. So seeking a financial professional who can help the young athlete take advantage of this really special time is the advice that I would say. And I say to some of my friends who have, because of social media or streaming on Netflix, who become suddenly famous, you have a financial advisor, because you could make so many wrong decisions unless you have a professional telling you what to expect. Because again, you don't know what you don't know unless you're living in the world of finance, and they need advice.
And Leda, if you don't mind me adding to what you just said, the importance of having a CPA in dealing with the tax issues. And think about an athlete that plays games in multiple states, and each tax area would have its own taxing rules, right? Think of it, an attorney that you're signing so many contracts and so many agreements and making sure that is prepared and executed appropriately. And obviously a financial advisor like myself and Michael, but you really need a team around you when you're talking about this kind of money.
Yes, absolutely. And as a financial advisor, presenting yourself with your team. So if there's somebody on your team that you use as a CPA and a legal person on your team, presenting yourself as that team is also a really great thing for a financial advisor to do, so that the athlete knows that they're going to be cared for and protected in every aspect of their game, of their life.
Leda, I want to thank you for your time tonight, and the insight you brought to this whole brave new world of college athletics. Seems to be blending into pro sports more and more every day. So thank you. Thanks for Frank Lepresti from New York Life for arranging this, and we appreciate your time this evening.
And Leda, this is obviously an evolving subject, so I have a feeling we'll have you back as this story gets clearer and we get more insight into what's going on. So thank you.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great chatting with you both.
You're welcome. And since Dom and I are born and bred New Yorkers, and you've been a transplanted New Yorker for 25 years, and we're talking about sports, how about those New York Knicks?
Oh, yes.
Finally, Mike, all these years, decades, finally.
Can't stop talking about them, and Manhattan is still having a party in the streets.
Exactly. So on that note, we will sign off for the Lebenthal Report, and we will be back next week. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lebenthal Report. Dominic and Michael will be back for our next program, airing next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Time and 5 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Business Channel. Until then, have a great week. The Lebenthal Report is brought to you by Lebenthal Global Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor, and Lebenthal Financial Services, Incorporated, a FINRA-registered broker-dealer. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered investment advice. The views expressed are subject to change based on market conditions. For more information about our qualifications and business practices, visit our website, lebenthal.com, where you'll find links to SEC's and FINRA's official resources.